Yeah, welcome back, you guys. JB Liquid here, and today we're going to make a template. Check it out. Uh, what we're going to do first is some organization stuff. Um, Ideally, depending on whether or not you like to use MIDI or if you like to use audio, we're going to start with the drums. So we're going to type in drums here. This first channel, if we want to do MIDI, we would do insert MIDI track. If we wanted to do audio, we would insert audio track. So for this particular, we're going to do audio. So we're going to name that kick. We're going to name this right here snare. Insert audio track again. We're going to do hat. And so on and so forth. Like to the point where maybe like we would do open hat here. And we could keep going, as far as like maybe even like a perk loop or something that we have here, like a perk loop. That would kind of be the idea. And then we would begin to fill these channels, for example, a kick sample here, snare sample here, hat, open hat, so on and so forth. Just real quick, if you wanted to do this in MIDI, you would just proceed to do the same thing in MIDI and then drag the samples out into here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that back. So here we have drums. So we have kick and snare. So some people like to do this, some people don't like to do this. It just depends on what your preference is. So we could actually take both of these and do kick and snare. If you wanted to micro mix a little bit, kind of do a multiple groupings together, and then because there's really no telling how many perks you're going to have. You could have a lot of perk fills, you could have a lot of stuff going on. So maybe even put these into all together like a perks. So what this would do right here is if you wanted to side chain the perks, you could actually do a kick, or you could just do the whole group here, if that's something that you wanted to do. So, and of course, there's other instances where if you're going to do a new grouping here, say we're going to do sub bass. And so if we wanted to do some sort of a sub bass grouping here, we would highlight both those. And I may not have mentioned this earlier, but you actually highlight both of them by holding shift and clicking down or up depending on the direction of the group. Command on Mac, Command G will group them. And so what we'll do is low end here, and I've seen this done before by a few producers where the kick drum actually goes with the low end group. That's something that you could totally do. It just depends on what you like to do. Does not matter. Sometimes you'll get a different sound, but for this particular, we're actually going to leave that in the kick and the snare. So let's change the color just so we don't get confused here. So we'll change it to a nice, I guess, pink purplish color we got going on here. So then we'll have the sub and the low end. Me personally, I would like to do bass mids or any sort of other feels that we're going to have here. For example, if we have just like mid feels, any sort of just really textural, it takes a lot of frequency range up top, would go in the low end for me personally, only because I feel like those noises need to be a little bit more coherent before they go into the rest of the mix. So we have the drums, we'll have low end here, and then if you wanted to even set that up to where it's side chained. So there's a certain thing in the industry now saying that side chaining is a myth. Just all depends, man. It's all going to be relative. So if you like the side chain, side chain. If you don't like the side chain, don't let anybody tell you that you need to side chain. So we're going to stay kind of on the template idea here. So we already have the low end set up here. So next we'll do synths. And so this could be, synth 1, synth 2, just like a variety of different things you're going to have set up here. Synth 2, and then we'll take all these shift, Command G to group. And then here we go. We're going to go ahead and name this synths, all of them. And of course, we would want to maybe just go ahead and say synth 3 here. Move that down to the bottom. So far we have drums, low end synths, and don't forget the mids and the sub are actually going to be in separate groups here. If that's something, sorry, let me fix that real quick. If that's something that you're interested in doing, I'm just giving you a little bit of an idea of how to create your own template on the way that you do it to help with workflow. And so maybe we might even change some of these mids here, just so we have a little bit of distinction when it comes time to do a mix down. Um, so yeah, so far we've got drums, low end with mid bass inside of the low end because we want those to be somewhat cohesive. And then, of course, we have the synths, which could be, if you like to do sub bass separately in the low end, this is where you would put your mids. Some people do like to split them. For example, this mid would actually go in the synths because you would proceed to actually low pass the synths at some point. Depending on how much low end you want out of that. I mean, you have a whole channel dedicated to sub or low end frequencies, so why not use that? For example, if you have an impact, like something at the beginning of the song, like for example, something like that, you would want to put that, in the low end, even if it had its own channel here. And so that would just be kind of like an impact. Now, if you're going to do something that was going to be a little bit more on the higher end, for example, we'll just grab like some sort of white noise, some sort of white noise like that, to where it didn't necessarily need that low end. That's when you're going to group together your FX, white noise, risers, just different sorts of elements that are going to be more for transitional stuff that may not be in the front of the mix, or they might be a little bit reverbed out, or they may be really up front in the mix depending on your style of music. And so you could do white noise here. You could do any sort of like reverse cymbals, anything that would incorporate an FX, maybe some sort of like midfield that's more used for something in the background, something that has a little bit more width in the back of the mix. So then you have FX and white noise as something that you can utilize as well with your groups. So we have a pretty decent just little idea of how we can begin a song. So I'm actually going to take these out real quick and we're going to pull open this, let's see, some sort of Lykwid track here. So we'll check out this tune with me and Dexter. So I'm going to drag this in down here to the bottom. This one's called Young Selecta. I believe it's out on Swamp Step. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of organization here and make sure that we're going to be on time when we're producing. This is going to be a 140 template just because I like producing at 140. So we'll actually unwarp it. And we're going to figure out where this drop is. So here we go. Okay, so we found the drop. Boom, right there. So we're going to right click up here, add locator, and we're going to name that the drop. So we know at this part of our production session that we should make a drop. If we want it to mix with this tune with me and Dexter, we want to make sure that we have a drop at that. All relative, everything's going to be relative, but this is just a good way to kind of get started, get moving, get shaking a little bit. Of course, in the beginning here, we would just add intro, put that here at the beginning. And then let's figure out kind of where, let's say 8 bars maybe 16 bars. If you wanted to get really down and dirty with it, you could say change. So you would expect some sort of change there. Excuse me. So just some sort of change every 8 bars. Just so you know in your brain that you don't just start looping tunes out until you got 3 minutes of the same drum loop. You really want to make sure that you add some sort of variation, whether it be fillers, just something to kind of give that flow. All right, so we'll kind of progress on here. So that would be a new count. That would be a new 8 bars to where a phrase is over. And EDM phrases are going to be a little bit different than traditional phrases, just because it's electronic. So we'll add another little change here. And like I said, this could all be relative. I mean, we have 8 bars here. Just kind of every 8 bars, we have some sort of variance in what's going on to capture the listener. So, as you guys can imagine, at some point you have to mix out as a DJ. So we're going to finish up this song just on this the second part of the first drop, and we're going to name that mix out. So. Okay, so this would be an opportunity to mix out if you were looking at mixing that tune out. So you know right there, boom, that you would want to bring the energy down a little bit, find some sort of a way to give a little bit of a mix out. That's where you'd utilize this white noise as effects to kind of reverb out some of this section here, start taking some of the sub bass out, or don't. Just know that you have to have some sort of a mix out in terms of following regular structure. This is an original tune, so I may do it a little bit different. So make sure to grab, your favorite artist or maybe one of your own tunes so you can kind of produce, ideally in the same structure. Of course, it doesn't always have to be this way. You want to switch up the BPM sometimes, do something different. We're still kind of focusing mostly on the template and the structure for just maybe a period of your production, a certain period of time. So we're going to progress on here and we're going to find the second drop. All right, so this one looks a little funky. Right there. So we'll go drop 2, right? So let's see if this lines up at all. So we're going to start at drop 2 and see if we can find 8 bars when it's time to change from this particular moment. So I believe that is relatively close, that 8 bar structure right there. So we'll say, well, yeah, I guess that is true right there. So I mean, honestly, we just want to know, that we want to remember that we need to change what's going on here at some point, right? And then of course this right here looks like it could potentially be a mix out. So let's take a listen. All right, so that would be mix out 2. And then here at the end, that's when the song's going to be over. So let's say song is over, or name it something along the lines of that. End of song, just something. And then you want to make sure that you always have a little bit of tail. So whenever you're mastering your songs, you just don't have a, I've been found guilty of that a time or two. So I want to make sure that I'm starting to have those tails at the end. So especially when you're DJing, it doesn't just whoop, just change completely. So that is something to keep in mind. So right here, we have a little bit of an idea of what we're looking at. So and make sure that you use whatever song you want to use. Switch it up. Use a template for a couple of months, a couple of weeks, a couple of days, and then say, hey, I'm going to drag something else in here, and we're actually going to use that. So what we got going on here, we have a couple different groups. So this is going to be also a little bit more relative. For example, so with the low end, you would want to leave this pretty wide open because you never know what kind of harmonics you're going to get, unless you're EQing just the sub, but that's more getting into mixing, and we're going to stay on templates today. So since we're going to cut this whole group, of course, to taste, there could be instances where you have lower end in your synths. You don't have to do it like this, but we are going to EQ this whole group to help for at the end whenever it's time to kind of color noises, time to mix in whole groups of already mixed channels. You see what I'm saying? There's a little bit of a process there. And you're getting ahead of yourself and saying, hey, I know that right here, when I open up this giant blank canvas called Ableton, that I can go ahead and hop in right here, activate a loop, and I can create the first 4 bars of the drop or the first 8 bars of the drop. And I would just start here with the kick and snare, progress down to the hats, open hats, the perk loops, throw in that sub, and then you might leave the impact blank until it's time to scroll over here, start working on the intro at some point. That would all be a matter of workflow for you, and how you would do it. So let's see here. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're looking at here. Same deal with synths, the FX white noise. That's just something just to keep an eye on. So I wanted to share this with y'all. So pretty much the way you can save it is you go to preferences, you go to, I believe it is file folder, and then hit save current set as default, and then you hit save here, and then it'll override the default set. So boom. And then there you go. Every time you open Ableton, this right here is going to open up just like this. So make sure to do it to your liking. I've seen people even already install master chains here and do something in that regard. So this is all, relative, but I hope that you find this useful. And I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time.